Everybody, Jamie is here as well.
All
I
right.
do not have the ability. Is my screen being shown already?
No.
Okay, my button is grayed out over here. I don't know why. Okay, there we go. Pushing the button,
Gotcha.
and now we should be live, right?
Yep. Looking good.
Okay, I love it when technology does its job. Excellent. All right, everybody, welcome to another Monday, the 23rd of May. Another hour, another edition of the office hours. Steve and I've got some really good stuff to show you guys today. Before we get into the thick of it, let's take care of the lawyer speak. Just want to make sure that everybody is aware that we are a publisher of information here at Trade Ideas. We are not registered investment advisors, so please do not take anything that we share with you today as a solicitation to buy or sell anything. If you need that type of service, please seek out the proper registered investment advisor, because everything that we share with you here today is strictly for educational purposes. All right. So before we get into the presentation here, just a couple of comments about today's activity. It seemed like everything kind of came within the first hour and a half, and then things went pretty quiet. So we're going to be talking about on a day like today, where do we go? Because it gets harder and harder as the activity diminishes to find the action. All right, but we've got some windows that were all over the action today, and some of the stocks that had some incredible moves, and we're going to be getting into that as well. And of course, before we get started, I want to just do a little market recap and let Steve, our in-house technician, talk about where we have been and where we might be going, as always.
What's that old Talking Head song? We're on a road to nowhere.
One of my favorite ones, by the way.
Yeah.
Talking Head songs.
Well, there's a couple schools of thoughts out here, and it can kind of go either way. One of the schools of thought is that we're building one big, massive bull flag there that could bounce off of that orange line that just seems to be impermeable to the sellers. The buyers continue to defend that line with intense vigor. However, we're not able to really creep back to the higher end of that other line that Jamie just put in there. We're making some lower highs. So some people might argue that this is kind of a bull flag, getting ready to, or an ascending, type wedge. Again, we're not in the business of trying to predict. I don't know which way we're going, but what I do feel is like something is getting close. we're getting really close and imminent here. And why do I feel that way? Because again, that lower orange line, every time we hit that line, the buyers jump in, push it back up, and strongly defend that level. But yeah, going back, including Friday, is kind of a lower high. And last week we got some lower highs from the week prior to that, lower highs. So, I've got one person that I respect, and it's his goggles that he's wearing, saying, hey, no, this isn't consolidation. We're back into a downtrend. Well, for the time being, we are in a bit of a downtrend because there is a case to be made there for some lower highs. But back to what I think. I think we're really close to some sort of an event here. I don't know what the catalyst is going to be. You can never obviously guess that. That's going to come as it comes. But the footprints are being herded into a corner. That base level is holding very well, but we can't really get much higher than we were able to get today and Friday. So again, I'm not trying to predict which direction we're going to pop out of this, but I feel like we're cornering an animal here, and at some point it's going to be really cornered and caged, and it's going to make its move and finally decide which way it is that we want to go. Again, I'm not in the business of predicting, but the way in which that downside level has been holding, boy, it seems like there could be a case to be made for just another pop up. And that's what we've been doing, but I'm not going to hang my hat on that. I'm not going to prepare for it. That's predicting. We're not here in the business of predicting. We're in the business of reacting and doing the best we can to prepare our minds, because chance favors the prepared mind. And so that's where we are in the spiders. I don't know which direction we're going, but I feel like we're in for some sort of a move, an aggressive move here pretty quick, as the footprints are kind of being painted into a corner down here.
Right, and this could also be kind of the lull before the storm, right? Because as we do coil up here and get a tighter and tighter range, a move is imminent. We just don't know, which way the move's going to be. This reminds me very similar. This looks very similar to an intraday pattern that we call the NR7, which when it starts getting into that little tight range, you know something's going to happen, especially if we go have an inside day, pretty soon. And will the move be up or down? Unknown at this point.
I will say this though. I talked to a lot of traders and friends of mine throughout the day, and a lot of them were just like, twiddling their fingers, like this is really boring. It's the second day in a row, and a second day in a row if you include Friday, we got just kind of a little very narrow range doji day. So kind of a day of quiet. And we'll look at that, how that translated into Holly. She had a rather quiet day, but it was a good day nonetheless. But I always, have my ear to the ground, whether it's talking to my friends in chat or looking at Twitter and seeing what the sentiment is out there. There's been a lot of frustration here, and I don't blame it. It has been frustrating. It's been kind of a sideways grind here, and until we pick a direction, we're in what Dan Merkin, the CEO of Trade Ideas, likes to call a statistical noisy period. And it's difficult to get things working whether you're a discretionary trader or an AI type of alert that we look at every day like Holly. When it's statistically noisy like this and we have lack of direction, things don't always pan out as well. And again, the frustration level I've seen from some of the traders and some of the funny memes I saw on Twitter today just really does encapsulate the attitude that you don't always have to be pushing buttons. That's, might be news to some of you, but cash is the position. Jesse Livermore, one of the greatest traders ever. If you haven't read the book, Reminiscence of a Stock Operator, what he was doing back in the 20s is very reminiscent of what we're doing today. Just back then they were using chalkboards. Today we're using algos. But the psychology is the same. The crowd mentality and herd mentality is the same. And one of the things he used to say was some of the best money that he ever made was sitting on his hands, meaning he wasn't putting himself at risk and just playing for the sake of playing when there's no edge. So we'll leave it at that.
Yes, missed money is much better than lost money, right? So when the signals are not clear, it is better just to sit on our hands. And when you hear traders that you've known for 15, 20 years reiterating that same thing from Friday and then today, then you know to pay credence to it. Right? It's all about reacting, which is, what we, try to put everybody in the mode here with Trade Ideas into is no preconceived notions. We just interact with the data that is presented to us, and then we either act on the, we see the data, and then we either act on it or we don't. And a lot of the signals, as of late, you don't really want to act on. But having said that, there were a couple of stocks today that really lit up the board. And if you're using our technology, there were several different ways to which those stocks could have been brought to your attention. So let me shrink this chart back up.
Not only using our technology, but also being present in Barry's live trading room as well, because you got the crowd hunting as a pack, and they were all over this particular name or two that we're going to talk about.
Oh yeah, and I think it's probably already on the lips of everybody out there. But obviously, one of the big stocks that was really well traded today in Barry's room was the CLRB today. So let me just get a daily pulled up here. And of course we can see, wham, just right off the open. Let me stretch these bars out a little bit here so we can see a little bit more detail. Opening bar, set a nice range and then woof, just straight up, if you didn't jump on it probably in the first 5-10 minutes, at the top of this bar, there was still a little bit of action there. But I hear everybody in the trading room did quite well on this one today. So everybody needs to keep in mind, if you haven't been going to the trading room where Barry is the moderator, you're selling yourself a little bit short here because, number one, it's free, and Barry does a very good job at what he does in there, and there's a lot of good traders in there. Steve, what was the person count in the room today? Did you take notice?
I think we got up around 340 people again. These are doubling type of participations than we had just 6, 7, 8 months ago. So the word's getting out, and we're happy to see that. I know Barry is too.
400 is on the horizon, and even higher. Probably be 500 people in there before too long. So good things happening there. So in essence, that is another fantastic information source for you. Now the windows that they were watching in there, probably a nice little assortment. So what I'd like to point out here today is a few windows that I've extracted from some of our channels. right? Now, trend change lubricant, just while we're on the topic here, gee, look at the guy at the top of the list here if I'm sorting by volume, CLRB, right? And of course, this is the volume radar that I plucked from the volume channel over here. I just simply imported it into my layout. Once again, gee, look at the guy at the top of the list, CLRB. Mainly because the relative volume was just so astronomical today.
I don't think I've seen a value like that in quite some time. 323 times its normal volume run rate.
Right, right. And then, of course, the percent of float traded. For some reason, we've got a few blanks in here today. I was told that this error has been corrected. We've got some blank fields in here today. But needless to say, that was probably a pretty high value. I would take it. Now, volume radar was 1. Trend change lubricant, CLRB, also at the top of the list. And then here's another little friend today, which I plucked from our social media channel, most discussed and trending up today when we're sorting by StockTwits relative activity. Boom. Gee, look who's at the top of the list yet one more time. So 3 different metrics all pointing to CLRB today.
Well, actually 4, Jamie. We don't want to be too confusing, but there was a 4th alert at 6:35 this morning.
The top predator.
On the top predator list. We don't. This is a top list now, so for your education, it's set to live, so we don't have any live data. But what Jamie can do
so
is
let's just do a little.
And go back and take a look at what happened 5 minutes after the open today. Once again, this thing was making its mark on many of the trade ideas functionality.
And once again, right at the top of the list there. So, for a sleepy day, having this many windows, and of course this is just a few, and I'm sure there are many other configurations that were put in place that probably flagged CLRB today. But just trying to point out on a slow day, if you've got these quality windows dialed in, you're participating in the trading room, then you had a lot of opportunity today. Now, having said that, CLRB, sure, who wouldn't have wanted to be in it here or even here and get that nice big move? But if we go back here to the most discussed on the social media, we had CLRB.
And XGTI. Yep, thank you.
This guy right here, on a percentage basis, we almost had a doubling effect right here. And, plenty of time to react to the stock once you were alerted to it, because, we had a good 5, 10, 15, over an hour period here, even stretching up to an hour and a half into the open. So once you're already aware of a little stock like this, of course, looking at the daily, pretty crazy action, busting out and then just, ripping the doors off on the way out.
I forget what's going on in post-market, but that's another story.
Right, exactly. But, of course, once you see this action right here, once again, how hard is it to play a range break on this one? Whether you got into it early or you're like, okay, well, I see it here, it put in a top, so now it's doing this, like I like to say all the time, if you can draw a horizontal line, you're halfway there. Because it just doesn't get any simpler as what you see right here. And what a huge move, almost a doubling from this level down here.
Yeah, so if you happen to miss it on one of the 4 major scans that we've been using here lately, you still had the opportunity in Barry's live trading room to have the crowd alert you to the possibility of what's going on there. So if you're not taking advantage of the live trading room, you really should be. Especially somebody mentioned they were new here, and one of the first things I let people know when they're new: have you been to the live trading room? It's a great place to watch and learn. Everybody's on the same page, focusing on a lot of the things that you probably have questions about. So if you haven't been to the live trading room, please, there's nothing to lose. It's free. Why are you not there? There's a lot of good stuff.
Right, unless you're making so much money that you don't want to make any more money, you need to be going to the trading room. There's no reason to not be there. Okay, now still the hat goes deeper. We had CLRB from this guy, XGTI, and then this little guy, which didn't move quite as much on a percentage basis. But if you are alerted to the stock, in the first 30 minutes, 45 minutes, then it's going to look very similar to what you see here. Plenty of time to be, size up the stock. It's put in its low and its high. It goes range bound, and then once again, all we have to do is apply some simple range break mentality to this play, and once again, just off this one window, and of course CLRB was duplicated in many other configurations today, but just from this one window today, spitting out AMD, XGTI, and CLRB, I mean, what a day-making window, just in these three trades right here. So, just wanted to reiterate, even on a slow day, plenty of high-quality things that not only moved, but moved in a very big way today.
And where did you pull that most discussed and trending list from?
All I did is I went to the social media channel.
Mm-hmm.
And
anybody
this
can
window,
do this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You just go to the social media, archive that window by right-clicking and saying Save to Cloud, and then incorporating into your default layout. Easy peasy.
Yeah, that's what's so cool about Trade Ideas for those that are not aware is it's basically a giant database of over 8,700 U.S. stocks, and it's constantly building a dossier on each stock and knowing what the different data points are that are relative to normal or a baseline, as you would call it. So we do a lot of work with volume and filtering for volume and looking at volume in 9 different ways, and how can we look at volume, but another way of not using volume but using the crowdsource to bring to your attention, because once again, Trade Ideas knows what these baselines are. It knows what CLRB and XGTI, how many times it should or should not be being discussed by the crowd. So when these anomalies happen, when we have a baseline on our database, it's just so easy for the system to pick up on these things and see in real time a very large anomaly, which you can see in that activity window. Because once again, whether it's 5-minute volume, 5-day volume, average true range, all these types of metrics that Trade Ideas keeps on all these stocks, social media mention is just yet another one. How many times are people talking about it coming through stock twits? And where there's smoke, there's fire, whether it's volume or the crowdsource. And so it's just yet another really cool way that I've not seen another company out there do it the way Trade Ideas has been using their technology and building layer upon layer over 13 years to get to where we are today.
Right, and just so everyone knows what these metrics mean here, this is a percentage filter, so 100% is normal activity, normal chatter on stock twits regarding that stock. So obviously CLRB, 26 times normal, XGTI, 16, little AMD wasn't as high as those guys, but it was still close to 3 times average mentions going through the stock twits universe today. So, there is power in the mob. It's just trying to decipher what the mob is saying and cut out all the noise and focus in on the quality data.
Hey, I don't know where you were going to go next, Jamie, but as anticipated, we do have a lot of people asking about the top predator window. Maybe we go and take a look at the configuration and talk a little bit about how it's configured and what it's looking for, and then once that's understood by everybody, we can drop the cloud link in and share those, because this one has been popping up a lot more lately with some of our users and internally as well.
I think that's an excellent idea. So we'll just expand this guy out a little bit. We'll give it the old right-click configure, and here we go. So go back over here, and so here is the filter set. A lot of rocket science going on up here, just the minimum value of 50 cents. Stock has to be at least 0.2% up from the close. Mm-hmm. And by the way, since we're here, for those of you who are new, or for those of you who are thinking about onboarding with us and getting active with the technology, these filters can get a little confusing. You're like, well, what do I put in the min field? Sometimes I have to use a negative number over here. So change from the close, 0.2. If you want an English description of what that means, we just click right here. And as long as we are in this little in words tab right here, 0.2 is going to get us this. Price was up at least 0.2% from prior close.
That's how you check your work.
So, we try to make everybody work as efficiently as possible. That way you don't have to spend your time tracking down mistakes and correcting them. All right, so in addition to that, stock had to have traded 70,000 shares already today, minimum, and an average daily volume over the 5-day of 150,000 shares. Now here's where we start adding some additional layers, to create this animal that we call the top predator. So in the past 5-minute period, it had to also be up 0.2 of 1%, or excuse, yeah, 0.2 of 1%. Position in range for the day. Now this is D, so D stands for daily. So whatever the range is that has established since the open, the stock has to be in the upper 10% of its daily range, so minimum of 90. Also the same setting in the change in 5 days. So with a 0.2 setting there, price had to be up at least 0.2 of 1% from 5 days ago. So slightly up on the 5-day average, but not too much. And then we're packing in a little bit of volume requirement here. And so this is also a percentage filter. So 200% simply means in the last 5-minute candle that closed, that stock had to trade a minimum of 2 times the amount of shares as it normally does in a 5-minute period. And I get this question a lot. People are like, well, is it comparing the same 5-minute period today as to the same 5-minute period yesterday? And the way that these volume filters work is as follows. We track everything and we keep that information, every tick of every stock, for a period of approximately 64 trading days, a little over 3 months on the calendar. So in essence, I'm just going to pick stock XYZ as an example. So our system knows, based on that 64, 65-day smoothed out average, that stock XYZ usually trades, let's just say, 1,000 shares every 5-minute period. So in this case, stock XYZ in the last 5-minute period that closed would have had to have traded 2,000 shares or more in order for that 5-minute metric at 200% to be satisfied. So pretty simple configuration, but very powerful.
I couldn't recall. Did you touch on the position in range, the 90%, or did I miss that?
Right. That's the daily. Right
Intraday. Yes. So in other words,
right.
It's within 10% of making a new 1-day high, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It's in the upper 10 percentile of its range for the day.
Yep. Just trying to help people with that one. All right.
And then obviously, this window opinion is going to be, better used right on the open. Because the longer a stock runs and it's going to be up there in its top 10%, the less potential it's going to have as the day drags on. So definitely one you want to pay attention to right off the bat, wouldn't you say, Steve?
Yes. Yeah. It kind of sets the tone for the day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. So top predator, we'll make sure that we share this window with everybody in the chat window here. And I tell you what, just to keep ahead, why don't I go ahead and drop that in?
Okay.
And once again, for those of you who are not familiar with our cloud functionality, it's a beautiful thing. All we have to do is right-click, save this guy to the cloud, copy that cloud link, and drop it right in here. Okay, so how about we go ahead and talk about Holly right now, Steve?
Sure thing. Loving those new columns of profit percent. It's getting
exactly.
a whole new view to her day when you sort by that column.
Absolutely. So Holly today, I got 2 plotters duplicated here, so let me do a little house cleaning here. All right, there we go. Okay, so a nice, calm, easy day from Holly. And once again, Holly is also what we could call a barometer. On a day like today where Holly spit out a total of 10, we had 13 trades today if we're looking at the trades today column. Little big guy spit out 5, 5-day bounce 3. The Bollinger reversion scalp, which actually captured the biggest winner of the day, spit out 2, and then all these guys had 1, 1, and 1 respectively. As we always say, just because a stock makes the cut doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to trigger today, and see the early bird didn't issue any trades today.
Hey, there's a new column that I think you might want to add for the AI strategy. We're able to now group the basis points based on strategy. If you have that column, let's see if we can find it. let's see, profit basis points. That would be it. So if we pop that in there, then we can take an aggregate look at strategy by strategy. And where is it? There it is, basis
Right
points. So
here.
now we can see that the little big guy is the leader if we sort by that. It's another way of looking at the day. That's something that's been long overdue, is looking at basis points in this matrix rather than just looking at dollars and cents and getting caught up on that all the time. So
Yes, very eye-opening because everybody's like, oh, not that big of a win, but on a basis point, scale, nothing to sneeze at. Okay, so here is the trade blotter for Holly today, and of course, I've currently got it sorted by profit percent, right? So we can see SSI, Holly made 19 cents on it, but it was a 3.7% gain there.
just let me clarify one more thing. Sorry to jump in, but these profit percentage columns that we're working with here, guys, before you ask, they're coming. We're working on a developer's version right now to make sure there's no bugs, but more than likely in the next production release to the public, you'll have these. But for the moment, if you're searching through your columns, they're not quite there yet, but just be advised they're on their way. Sorry, Jamie.
Hey, not a problem. So real quick here, let's just focus on the non-exit column because this is where we go, to illustrate trade arounds and things of that nature. Okay, so one that stands out right off the bat would be CHD. All right, and let me just expand this chart out a little bit here. So here we're looking at 5-minute intraday candles. So CHD, long play right here, 97.28. And then, of course, as soon as she gets long, we start getting this little sideways action right here. Of course, Holly has to do what she's programmed to do, which her exit time on this one, this was geared up for a 90-minute hold, I believe, the 5-day bounce. So we come here. We can see right here on the time stop, 90-minute hold. Of course, Holly's going to follow the rules. She can't read charts. She makes really good entries. That is Holly's strong point, her statistically weighted entries. So we get long here, da-da-da-da-da, meander around here. Holly's like, hey, I got to get out. 90 minutes is up. I'm going to lock in my profit of 2 cents.
Timed stop, not a stop loss. Timed stop.
Yeah, we look over here. The reason was a time stop. So obviously if you had taken this trade along with Holly, you're like, well, I see Holly's getting out, but there's absolutely no reason whatsoever that I should exit this trade. And that's what we do, We put on our trader's hat and we handle the second part of the equation. Holly's already done her job, put us into the highly weighted statistical play. And then, as we always reiterate over and over again, timing is everything. Sometimes the timing is off a little on the entry. Sometimes the timing's off a little on the exit. But that's where we and our human brains and our chart reading skills come into play.
And just to simplify this a little bit for some of the newer people, what if that was a negative trade and was being stopped out at a stop loss? What should we do then, in your opinion?
Right. Well, here we have one of those trades, CRESY. This was a short that was initiated, and of course, you can see that we got stopped out pretty quick for a 25-cent loser, right? Now, when it was all said and done, we had a 13-cent winner if we held to the close. But how do we play this? How do we play this trade around? And the rule of thumb is to take the entry price once she gets stopped out and simply use a limit alert to tell us when that is being reached again. In other words, when this non-exit profit reads a 0, and the only way it's going to do that is if we get back to our entry price. So if we get stopped out, we're like, ooh, I just see Holly got stopped out of a trade. So we would do this. We would just come up here, and of course we can always see where the entry was because that's the blue guy. Of course the stop loss is up here, which got triggered, and this is where the stock currently is. So we would just set a limit alert to the downside at this exact price right here, 11.45. If the price falls to, of course, if I set it right now, it's going to auto trigger. But in the middle of the day, obviously this part of the chart hasn't taken shape yet. So once we get punched out of here, we would just set a limit alert for a fall down to 11.45, and we would want to re-enter the short. And then, of course, we could say Holly trade around, just so we're reminded when that does fire, what exactly it is that we're doing.
And then in a trade like second from the bottom there on the list, HDP was stopped out, stop hit, 25 cents. It went on to lose $2.20. So in that particular case, you're never going to have a secondary.
That's actually the profit percent.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is the non-exit right here. Yeah.
Thank you.
There we go. I was doing that too. Earlier.
It still went lower, and the reason I brought that up a minute ago to Jamie was there's two significantly different scenarios. One, stock is working for you on a time stop. Holly's saying, peace out, I got to go. The shot clock is expiring. Not a great reason to get out. But a stock that's going negative and against you, and Holly is saying, peace out, I got a job to do here, and that's risk management. You're better off following her and then doing like what Jamie said there, looking for a possible reentry. If it triggers, it's something to think about. If it never triggers, no harm, no foul. But the point being is big difference between a time stop and a trade that's working and up for Holly versus a trade that's not working and getting stopped out because the stop target was hit. Those are not ones you really want to second guess and play around with, in my opinion. That's the way I do it.
I agree. I agree completely. So all in all today, when we look at the trades once again, whether we're looking at the non-exit or her closed P&Ls, when we look at the stop outs, the risk management appears to be working. There was a little bit left on the table here, not that big of a deal. Could have been a trade around, just didn't yield a whole lot. 25 cents would have been 34 and 29 would have been 45. So the stops are working. For us in that capacity. Deer started off really well and then just kind of pulled back. So once again, the deer, if you were in that trade, maybe you stuck with Holly and made your 27 cents. But, 78.18, we topped out at, there was a point of alpha in that trade, just depending on where you exited, but plenty of chances to exit at a profit. And of course, the biggest winning trade today came from a short, which was a really beautiful call. Pretty much not quite top ticked it, but got pretty close. Had a lot of profit potential here and then a little snapback. So all in all, a nice, easy day for Holly on low trade count, pulling in $1.48 on that trade count, or a total of 40.3 basis points. And of course, we didn't have the slide in there today, but just to kind of give everybody a little peek here, after this little pullback that we had, we're starting to creep back up here, made about half of it back, and hopefully by the time the week's out, we'll be flirting with these levels up here once again. Taking our pullback with Holly just like a stock does before we hopefully set new highs. All right, so once again, nothing too crazy with Holly today, but hey, nice solid performance, and we'll take this, especially on a day like today. So, when you look at what Holly was up, whether it's basis points or point total, and then you look at the trade arounds, like for example, on the CHD, the extra of alpha that you could have pulled in there to the tune of about 50 cents, and then whether it was the deer. So probably could have pulled another 70, 80, another buck out of the trade arounds or the alpha that you can't see in these reports here. So on a slow day, between what she booked and the trade arounds and the alpha hiding within the cracks, there was about 2.5, 3 points of potentiality there today. And keep in mind, on a slow day, those are some pretty good statistics.
Mm-hmm. Alpha fracking.
Digitally fracking for that alpha, Steve. That's a wonderful analogy that you came up with there.
All right, where to next?
All righty. So, I just wanted to pull my limit alert window over here and give everybody a peek because once again, this is another barometer that lets us know the sentiment of the market. So, everybody can see these were some of the alerts that I created on the 19th, which was last Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Let's take a look here. Yeah, so last Thursday was the 19th. These are the alerts that Steve and I set. And then I tacked on a few more on Friday, which really aren't doing much of anything. Down 4 cents on that one, down 10 cents on that one. But it's a testament here. So up 99 cents, since Thursday on my limit alerts. Not a whole lot, but it's up something. And I think today we peaked out on this P&L at about a $1.60 or $1.70, and then we pulled back to only up about a buck before the close. So once again, that's telling us something. Just like we saw a lot of things go up today and then back off, I'm seeing the same data in this window here, which is more information for me to make, better decisions on how aggressive I should be throughout the trading day. So what we're seeing here are just moderate gains with the price alerts, which jives completely with the lackluster action that we saw after the first 90 minutes today. So, usually Steve and I will go through the trend change and have some good setups queued up for you guys today, but we're just not seeing them today. And the ones that are showing up are on the thinner volume, so we don't want to go loading the blotter up with a bunch of really, and when I say thinly traded, I mean really thinly traded. A lot of the times we'll do them even if they average 150,000 shares a day, but pickings are slim right now, and that's not surprising at all when we look at what the market's doing and the type of range that we had today.
Mm-hmm. All right, where to next?
Well, I think you had queued up.
I do have something.
A nice little back test for us, Steve.
Why don't I grab controls, change presenter, me, and see if I can figure this out.
You can do it. There you go.
Are we seeing my screen? Awesome.
We are.
Great. Let me first call your attention to a daily chart of Pandora. For those that are on our mailing list, the trade of the week. Pandora was selected today, over the weekend, I should say, last night. And one of the reasons that we liked it was this little thing here. First and foremost, let me just say it was taken from the trend change lubricant. It's not on now, but at the close on Friday and going into the weekend, it was number 2 on my trend change lubricant factor. And if you recall, this is a way of trying to look for stocks that are beaten up on the year but trying to turn back up and move higher. And more importantly, if I get my thing back here, I'm sorting these by short float percentage. We're starting to get some more stuff popping back in here. XON is short 35% of the float. It could be a short squeeze on 54 million shares, not that many. This one here, EGRX, is getting kind of interesting. It is short 27% on only 10 million share float. Here's the EGRX, and it looks like that is a level that was set. I'm not quite sure why it didn't trigger. But back to my original thinking here. This Pandora. This was something that just jumped off the page to me. When I see a gap and then coming back in, trying to fill the gap, but a failure at filling the gap and turning back and running to highs, this is a pattern that can work fractally. What do I mean by fractally? This is a pattern that can work on a 5-minute chart, a 15-minute chart, or a daily chart. And the theory is, let's look at the psychology behind it. Obviously, a big event here. By the way, this was earnings back here. Earnings played its games and washed everybody out, and then dug right back. The buyers came back. I'm not even, matter of fact, I don't even care what this news was. I don't want to know. All I know it was good news, and there's a gap there. And all I know beyond that is that the price actually tried to fill the gap like it did back here, but couldn't get there. Got halfway into the gap, turned around and moved higher. This is a pattern I've been using forever, and I call it the horseshoe pattern. And the horseshoe pattern is basically what it is. It's a gap up, a come in, and then a move higher. This could be in a 15-minute chart. It could be in a daily chart. Either way, the mentality is the same. The gap was not filled. The shorts who were cheering and looking for a gap closure are now on their heels and having to move higher and compete with new buyers coming in what's called a short frenzy. Well, Pandora also had a decent 22% short the float. But I'm setting this up here to show you in any time frame, these gap up, false tracement, false gap fill, whatever you want to call it, and then moving back up through highs can be a really interesting pattern. And it can be interesting on the daily and or the intraday. So It sparked a little nostalgia on myself because back in the day when I first came into Trade Ideas, as I said, I was user number 3, and Dan Merkin came to me and said, "We're starting this really cool company. It's going to be, it's going to spit out some really cool custom trade setups in real time. What would you like to see, Steve?" Well, my first inkling was this at the time was working really well for me, and I wanted more of it. So through my own request, if you type in gap in the search field, the false gap up retracement was born. And this is by design by yours truly. The flipped version, I used to call it the rainbow of death. Instead of looking like a horseshoe, it would gap down, try and come back up, and roll back over like a rainbow, and not good for the longs. So these false gap up retracement up and down were created by myself, and looking at that Pandora chart over the weekend made me think, well, boy, you know, I haven't back tested this one for a while. Let's see how it's looking. So, you know, I think I got some interesting stuff going in the right direction. So as we know, an alert has to have an event, something that we can time stamp and price stamp. So rather than a new high or a new low, we're going to use the false gap up retracement. But we have a value that we have to configure here. And what I did is I just messed around. I tried 50, I tried 40. I'm now satisfied with just 30. Honestly, the less of a percent fill, the more power there could be if it returns to highs versus filling 90% of the gap, then running back up to highs. You know, 30% is kind of the sweet spot. So what this is saying is here, there's kind of a filter on this particular alert. Only show this alert, and this alert will trigger as it goes back to highs, mind you. But Trade Ideas is going to capture the internal guts of what we're looking for. It has to gap up, and it has to fill at least 30% of the gap. I started working on this. One of the things that I did not filter for was the actual gap itself. We'll go ahead and do that together. But what I've got, here's what I've got so far. My price is $5 to $100. Relative volume. I need volume on this. Without volume, this pattern will fail, and it always has. So a minimum of 2 to 1 relative volume. So if the stock's normally doing, you know, 500, or since we're talking about the open here, if it's normally doing 300,000 in the first half hour, I need it to be doing 600,000. Time of day. Now this is a real unique filter that isn't used much, but this particular alert needs to set up. It needs to gap up first. If I just do this on the open, I'm going to get a lot of noise, a lot of stuff that looks like it was gapped up but then filled back in on the same bar, and that's not what I want. I want a little bit of time for this to develop, and I may even change that. We'll see, but for now, the alerts are not going to start spitting out until 30 minutes are after the open. Average daily volume, nothing really special, 200,000 shares. But that's about it. So let's go ahead and back test what we have and see if there's anything we can improve. I think I might be able to maybe add some filters for how much we want the stock to gap up, because right now it's just, you know, any type of gap will work. So as always, we can only backtest an A window, an alert window, because we're using the price stamp and the time stamp to send that data to the AI so they can quantify all this stuff and spit back a good report. So backtest data, this is going to be a long strategy. And again, I don't have it spitting out alerts until after a half an hour after the open. So I'll just go ahead and I'm going to keep it the way I have it. We're running out of time. I don't want to spend too much time optimizing, but let's go ahead and just run that, and I'll show you why I optimized it in such a way. All right, so not too many trades. I think I back tested about 50 days. So over the course of 52 days, we're averaging about 1 trade a day. How about that? Not too bad. I like that kind of a pace. It's a slow pace. Not a lot of decisions to be made, but profit factor of 3.74, 67.3. You know, these are the kind of statistics that will get these things loaded into Holly to see if she can mess around with it. But optimization, as far as optimization goes, I've already done my price optimization. The time of day was already optimized. Matter of fact, look, this was just 1 trade here, so we don't need to do a whole lot of time optimization. But you know, let's do one more thing. Let's run it again, but let's run it with a little different action this time. Let's configure it and add a gap. Let's say we need our gap to be at least 0.5%, and let's see what that does to our findings. So we just simply go to our keyword search, type in gap. We're looking for gap percentage. There it is. Let's add that filter. Now that that filter's in the mix, we're going to scan for 0.5. So a 10-cent gap or a 20-cent gap is not going to cut it. We need something a little bit more meatier. Maybe we'll go like 0.6, but we can experiment with this. Let's go ahead and click that and then back test again with everything else being the same and see if we've done anything of interest that we can compare to. Not a whole lot, really. Looks like pretty similar. The average winner over here was 33 cents. The average loser was 18 cents. So I don't really think I need to do much of a gap filter on that one. It seems to have done a decent job scanning for it itself. But what I did do is on the simple optimization, oh, by the way, this is also holding. This is holding until the end of the day. So no matter what type of day it was picked up, it's holding until the bell. But maybe this is something that can have a little movement behind it, something that maybe a swing trader might like. What if we test for this at, we'll call it market open plus 2 days, the day after tomorrow. Let's go ahead and just change that one simple metric. Rather than just holding it into the close for the day it was triggered, let's see what happens if it's held for a couple extra days. We made that one minor change, simulating a buy. We should have the same amount of buys and sells. Let's see if we can improve our profit performance. Doesn't look like we could. Our profit factor went down to 2.7. The only really degradation I'm seeing is the profit factor and the win percentage. So it's probably best left to just hold towards the end of the day. And again, these are all the questions you can ask yourself during these types of optimization runs. What can I do to change things? What can I do to make things a little different? Filter. Well, relative volume filter. We can look at the relative volume ratio. We can see that most of our trades did take place in the 2.0 to 2.99. If I run this again, if we, I believe, just right-click and change, edit the relative volume and strategy, let's go back and change this down to something a little bit more liberal, like 1.3. I'm guessing that that's going to degrade our performance a little bit. So let's back test that. Everything else being the same, simulate buy. Again, I'm just going through the optimization, showing you the regular drill of what works for tweaking and what doesn't necessarily have as much impact when you tweak. All right, so by lowering my standards, we've increased more trades. We've got, instead of 52, we've got 115. We've lowered our win percentage. We've lowered our profit factor. So, I mean, for the most part, the work that I've done has already optimized it. I just kind of wanted to backtrack a little bit and let you guys see what some of the items are that can be optimized. Of course, the time of day, of course, the price selection. So that said, I think we've got a pretty interesting little summary here of something that's spitting out maybe one trade a day after a half an hour after the opens. The idea is to buy it and hold on to it until the end of the day. And so let me close this one because that was a separate one. That is today's lesson on how to just kind of put something together and backtest it and optimize, because I'll tell you, I ran this maybe 2 years ago. I tried to run this and it wasn't working. And that's just a testament to the concept we all have to remember: the change is the only constant. What always works will always eventually not work. But that doesn't mean it can't come back and work again. And that's one of the really beautiful, powerful things I enjoy about using this odds maker, is going back and letting me know when certain strategies are degrading or when certain strategies might be coming back to life. So that said, I'm going to close that. I'm going to go ahead and copy, because I know the question is, Steve, can we have a copy of that because it looks like a decent strategy that you worked on? Of course you can. Let's go ahead and save and share, copy that to my clipboard, and I will drop into the chat window here again, and I will actually label it first. It's called the horseshoe up, which begs the question, Steve, did you flip it to see if it works on the downside? Yes, I did, and no, it does not work on the downside, and that's kind of a common thing. A lot of times when these trend change lubricants are working really well on the upside, the trend change lubricants to the downside are not working very well. So it's very rare to get a strategy that works in both directions. But for right now, using the Powerful Trade Ideas backtesting module, it looks like the horseshoe up is a pretty decent strategy, and it's back in my mix. Also wanted to show you the price alerts. positive number is good. I just set these alerts in the last 10 days or so. Got a good mix of longs and shorts. For those of you that come into the Trade of the Week webinars, I promise I'll be doing some more marking and some more setting of price alert triggers. And for those of you that do have this, you know that we can easily share and collaborate these settings as well. So we'll kick back on that when I reach you guys again on the Sunday night Trade of the Week webinar. But I did just drop in the cloud code for the horseshoe up alert that seems to be back testing well again. And hopefully you all got a little something out of that. But if you actually want it, the cloud is there in the chat window for you to take down and use for your own. All right, good luck with that.
Right, and in closing about the what everybody just saw Steve doing there, going through that exercise on the odds maker. It's like I tell everybody, especially when they have training sessions with me, you might have the AI package, and you might have been watching Holly and learning from Holly, but don't forget, you've got access to a very powerful tool. For those of you who already have it and are not using it, here's what I kind of equate it to. If the factory wants to make widgets, it has to have raw materials. Well, in this case, the factory is your brain, and the more that you get in there and scan and expose yourself to new metrics, that's the raw material that's going to enable you to come up with new ideas. So if you've got the AI channel and you've been neglecting the odds maker, get in there and interact with it. If you guys are on the fence right now about getting the AI package, just remember, you get access to Holly, you get the limit alerts, and you get the backtester. So these are all very good ways to dive into the data pool into depths that you've never been to before, because you have to have these types of tools to get that far down into the data pool. Alrighty, well, Steve, unless you have anything else to add, I think we should probably bring Scott in and let him discuss.
Let's do that. Yeah, I think since I don't have the pitch deck, so the sales deck, so I better give it back to you, Jamie, or do you want to take it, Scott? Who wants to do it?
Yeah, just take it back over here, Steve.
Yeah, let Jamie take it since he's already tested his. Yeah, we've got some important stuff coming up. We finally have a date, those of you who don't know or maybe haven't received the notification yet, that we are having a price change effective June 1st. So first, let me just explain where we're at right now for those of you who might not be a subscriber or have the AI channel. So we're a software as a service company, and our core is a subscription-based. So it's $99 a month or $888 a year. There's no contract with any of them; they're automatic recurring, but you can cancel or upgrade from the monthly to the annual at any time. All that includes all your real-time data, the charting, really great training program. As soon as you sign up, go to the support section, and if you haven't already, do it now. Go to support, click on training, and select your preferred time and date for a training session with Stevie or with Steve or Jamie. I always want to call, because of the two names, Jamie and Steve. Yeah,
I know.
And then there's the AI channel, which is access to the odds maker and the AI and the price alerts, the other high-level functionality that uses those server-level permissions, and that's a one-time $1,100 license that you have for life, and all you need to go along with that is an active subscription. That is what is changing. So what we're doing on June 1st, and you have until then if you want to act before that. If not, you're going to be advised of what the program is going to be in the future. We're going to, and if you show the next slide, then I can also kind of talk to that too. So you can also go to the page that you see the address for at the top, tradeideas.com/price, and that has an explainer too. So what we're moving towards is just a basic and a premium model. So there's going to be TI Pro or TI Core, which is $99 a month, $888 per year, just like we talked about. And then to access the AI and the odds maker moving forward after the June 1st change, it's going to be $188 per month or $1888 per year. So after we do that rollout, it's really simple. It simplifies everything. You're either on regular TI or you have the premium. And until then, we're going to still be offering that $1,100 lifetime license. And if you take a look at the $1888 per year versus paying $1,100 once, adding a year to that for $1988, and then renewing at $888, you save over $1,000 on your first renewal if you act before we do the price rollout. So if you kind of wrap your head around that, it makes a lot of sense. There's going to be 2 core plans, 2 premium plans. Those of you who are existing subscribers before we do the price rollout will still be able to purchase the $1,100 lifetime license probably through the end of the summer, maybe the end of the year. But we're going to let you grandfather yourselves into that by doing that if you act before that. Oh, let me also mention that if you look at your handouts panel on your GoToWebinar interface, there is a PDF for you to download with this information, the links, and also the special you're going to see on the next slide. So we do this often, and it's something that we do to thank everyone for attending. There's a code, Holly25, it's all caps. Type it in just like you see it on checkout, and you can try us out for half off your first month. That's really the best way to do a trial. You get full access to regular trade ideas. It doesn't have the odds maker or the AI, but you can still play with everything, get real time, and get the training, and go to the trading room also and get a real idea of how to use our software and our technology. The same code takes 20% off your first year. So if you're on the monthly, it's a great upgrade. Just go ahead and do that. Or you can get that lifetime AI odds maker license that's going away after the 1st of June. 30% off, $770 lifetime. And if you combine the $770 lifetime with $710 for the first year, it's $1,480, and that's over $500 in savings off of what would it cost if you were to buy everything retail, $1,100 plus $888. And on the next slide, we have a link for a page where you can just go to get all that at one time and use the code and save over $500 immediately. And you can use that short code or download the PDF and click through it. bit.ly/AI Holly, all in caps for the AI Holly, takes you right to the page where you can click through that $1,988 offer, put in the code Holly25 before the end of business on Friday, and you can check out for $1,480. Gives you lifetime access to the AI and the odds maker, and you renew at $888, not $1,888. And that's what I was talking about, where if you do this before June 1st, your first renewal next year, you save $1,000 immediately, and you've already saved $500 when you signed up for the first time. It's an outstanding deal. Anyways, so download that PDF. Think about this before the 1st. We're going to be reminding you about this between now and the 1st of June. If you have a question about it at all, just email us, info@trade-ideas.com. We'll help straighten you out. Give us a call at 619, and the next slide has the phone number on it. Or follow, hit up Jamie's at QuantBot. Steve is at Today Trader on Twitter. Dan is at Trade Ideas 1. We are it's facebook.com/TradeIdeasPro if you want to find us on Facebook. I need to fix the formatting on this. Obviously, someone played with it. Info@TradeIdeas.com is the best place to go for getting your questions answered. Or tune into the next webinar. We're having a Trade of the Week webinar and a QA webinar, both on Wednesday. And then there's also the Trading Studio webinar on Thursday. Plenty of opportunity to ask questions, figure this out if you want to hop on board before we do the price change. If not, now you know what it's going to be. Thank you for the awesome presentation, Steve, Jamie. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Yes, you will. More of the same.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, and there'll be a recording up in a few hours, probably by tonight sometime. Thanks, everyone.